In this video, I'm gonna give you 3 things that either you or one of your athletes or performers can say to themselves to help them overcome pressure in their next big moment. Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome to you as well. This is part 3 of my Performing Under Pressure series. If you missed parts 1 or 2, no worries, I'll leave those links below. We've covered a lot in this series already. In the first video, I talked about the top 5 reasons why athletes choke under pressure, and in the second video, I revealed the secret to performing under pressure that has helped thousands of the athletes that I work with better handle pressure when they need to. Today, I'm going to introduce one of several tools that I'm going to talk about through the remainder of this series, self-talk. Specifically, I'm going to give you 3 things that you can say to yourself when you start to feel pressure, and I'm going to break down what we're trying to accomplish with each one of those 3 things. This video is also going to be great for parents and coaches because these statements are going to be very easy for them to adapt into the conversations with their athletes to help their athletes perform better in the face of pressure. Let's dive in. Before we dive into those 3 things, I have a free gift for you or one of your athletes to help them better prepare for pressure in those next big moments. I want you to get over to trainwithpert.com/free guide. What you're gonna find there is an easy to read 10-minute guide that contains 3 easy to install steps that any athlete or performer can use to help them better mentally prepare for those next big moments where they're gonna feel pressure. Again, that's trainwithpert.com/free guide. All right, let's get after it. The way that we talk to ourselves, especially as athletes and performers, is incredibly important because honestly, no one talks to us more than we do. Now, I've already got a video that breaks down the qualities that your self-talk should always have, but today I want to get very tactical with you and give you exactly what to say to yourself in these situations where you feel pressure. I'll leave the link to that other self-talk video both above and below in the description. According to the Laboratory of Neuroimaging at USC, the average person has around 70,000 thoughts in a day. That's almost 49 thoughts in a minute. Now, the majority of those thoughts we don't even really notice because they do come and go so quickly. It's kind of like when you drive down the highway and you have all these cars on the other side of the road from you. You rarely notice the majority of them. But there are some thoughts that we really take a lot of notice of, and those thoughts actually aren't that involuntary. In fact, some of the thoughts that we have, the ones that can most impact our performance, are actually just the things that we're choosing to say to ourselves when we're talking to ourselves. So an example of an involuntary thought is if you get hungry, you're probably going to have this thought of, what am I going to eat later today? That's a pretty involuntary thought. However, if you make a mistake in a game, for example, and you start beating yourself up with some negative self-talk, that's actually a choice that you're deciding to make. Those thoughts, specifically that negative self-talk, are what I like to call with my one-on-one clients mental actions. Many people, when they are faced with pressure, they start to take these very unproductive mental actions, such as how they talk to themselves, but also where they choose to place their focus. So while we're talking today specifically about self-talk, at a very high level, I want you to be thinking about what other unproductive mental actions do I take when I'm faced with pressure that may not be putting me in the best position to succeed. So while we're talking today about self-talk specifically, I also want you to be really considering at a high level what might some of the other unproductive mental actions that you take in those pressure situations might be, because those unproductive mental actions are not putting you in the best possible position to find success. All right, statement number 1, the first thing that I want you to start saying to yourself when you feel pressure is that it's okay to feel this way. Let's talk about why this statement is absolutely critical to your success. In the first video of this series, we talked about how pressure can feel threatening at times. And in the second video, we talked about why we feel threatened in these situations. And the ability to overcome this is actually going to lead to you uncovering the secret to your ability to perform under pressure. This is where this statement comes in, because the majority of the one-on-one clients that I work with and that I meet, they really struggle with pressure because they spend all of their time and mental energy trying to get rid of the pressure. They do this because they've convinced themselves that the only way that they're going to be okay in this situation is if they make that pressure go away. But as we've talked about in this series, you feel pressure and the effects of pressure because you care. And you're allowed to care about what you do. So if you spend all of your time and mental energy trying to fight this feeling, change this feeling, or trying to ignore this feeling, all that ends up doing is it gives the emotions power over you, and they start to take control of how you think. So we need to find a way to give you the power back. Because if you think about it, there is no rule in the rule book of the world that says that I need to be completely without fear or worry or doubt in order to be able to do the things that I need to be able to do, because honestly, that's just not true. In fact, you've probably had it several times going into your performance where maybe you were a little afraid, or you were a little anxious, or you were a little worried about what might happen. And in spite of those feelings, you were still able to do exactly what you needed to be able to do. I'll give you a personal example. For the longest time, I have hated speaking in front of a group of people. In fact, the lowest grade that I ever got in college was a darn public speaking class. But since a critical part of my company's success and my ability to be successful as a mental performance coach, I need to be able to get up and deliver a talk in front of a group of people. Now, when I had to give those talks, did I feel all the range of emotions that you probably do when you feel pressure? Absolutely I did. And I'll be honest, I probably, like you, for the longest time spent all of my time in those situations trying to convince myself that I wasn't afraid, that I wasn't worried, that I wasn't having any doubts, and it didn't work. None of those things worked because I was lying to myself. So one day I took a new approach. I said, it's okay. It's okay to be worried in this situation. It's okay to even be a little afraid and have a few doubts about how this is going to go. And the moment that I did that, the moment that I stopped trying to get rid of all those feelings and get rid of the pressure, was the moment that I was able to actually direct my attention and my focus on my preparation and on just executing the talk that I was trying to give. That exact same process has been proven to work for the thousands of athletes that I've worked with over these last 7 years. But it all starts with the statement of, it's okay to feel this way. If you think you can use that first statement to your benefit, or one of your athletes or performers can use that statement, make sure to hit that thumbs up button for me right now. All right, statement number 2, the second thing that you can say to yourself when you start to feel pressure is, this is the moment that I want to be in. Now let's take this a step farther. Now that we've taken the step to finally allow ourselves to feel the things that we're just going to feel in these moments, let's also remind ourselves that these are exactly the moments that we want to be in. I've talked a lot in this series about how high-level athletes, especially those that I've had the pleasure of working with, they feel pressure, but they've found a way to change their relationship with that pressure. And so now when they feel that pressure, it's simply just a signal to them that, hey, this is exactly the moment that I want to be in. You as an athlete or a performer, you spend all this time and all these resources getting better at your craft, but yet you allow pressure to convince you that you shouldn't want to be in these moments and that you shouldn't be able to celebrate all your hard work. That's pressure trying to convince you of that. I use that word celebrate intentionally. It comes from a very influential professor that I've had in my life. And when we were in grad school and we had these big tests or these big presentations coming up, he would always say, those moments are simply an opportunity for you to celebrate all of your hard work and preparation. Think about that. You spend hours getting your body ready to compete. You spend hours honing the individual techniques that you need to be able to do in order to perform well at your sport. And you spend hours studying film all in order to be as prepared as you can be. Why not treat that performance in front of a scout or a tryout or a showcase that you're going to or a big presentation that you have to give? Why not treat those situations as an opportunity for you to celebrate all that hard work that you've already put in? Because after all, those are the moments that you've been preparing for. All right, statement number 3, focus on my task. This last one is simple, but also incredibly necessary. After you've used those first 2 statements to get your mind right, your job now as an athlete, as a performer, as a person, is to focus on your task, to focus on just doing your job in that moment. An individual's ability to place their attention on exactly where it needs to be is the single biggest determining factor that will determine whether or not they have success on that day. When people start to feel pressure, they easily get caught up in all the distractions that are readily available in those environments. The biggest one of those distractions is probably, what are other people going to think of me? What's my coach gonna think? What's my parents gonna think? What are my teammates gonna think? What are my friends gonna think of me, depending on how this performance goes? This statement is incredibly powerful, but only if you can first recognize that you're distracted in the first place. So you need to build for yourself that radar. You need to work very hard to get good at recognizing when your mind isn't in the moment that it needs to be in. Because as I tell all of my clients, we need to work so that way you get your mind in the right moment, on the right thing, and at the right time. If you enjoyed the video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to that channel. And if you haven't already, make sure that you get over there, trainwithperk.com/free guide to pick up that 100% free guide. It's really gonna help. I'll see you next week.